So we were hoping that things would take a turn for the better post mid-month wrap-up. However, they did not. So welcome to my full April 2021 reading wrap-up. Welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. My name is Katrina and I make bookish content here on this channel at least twice a week, and then movie reviews here for you at the weekend. In the description box below, you will find all of my social links, including my blog and my Goodreads, where I have reviewed a few of the things that I am about to talk about here. In case you missed that mid-month April wrap-up, I will leave it linked up above, because I do go into more detail about quite a few of these books in that video, and I feel like I didn't read a whole lot more following that video, so today's going to be an interesting one. As always, I will break my reading down into ebooks, physical books and audiobooks. I always end with audiobooks because they are always my biggest selection when it comes to reading, and yeah, this month is no different. We have one ebook this month, and it is A Taste of Home by Heidi Swain. You know that you are in for a good time when you pick up a Heidi Swain novel. We will have a heroine who is in a bit of flux in her life. She's at a bit of a crossroads, and coming to a Heidi Swain location will help with that, and this book is no exception. Home is where the heart is, and this one, in case you couldn't tell by the strawberries on the cover, features a fruit farm as well. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'm into growing fruit now, let's do that, which is what happens when I read a Heidi Swain novel. Her last one had me wanting to plant a winter garden, but I live in a one-bedroom apartment, so I have nowhere to do that, but we can dream. Anyway, this one was just lovely. I have a full review of it on my blog, so you can go there and take a look at that. And I will also leave my interview with Heidi linked up above, because she does give a couple of hints as to things that occur and characters we may meet in this novel in that video, so it's definitely worth a watch. And then we have physical books. I have a couple of physical books to talk about. I talked about this one in my mid-month wrap-up. This is Kid Innovators, and I do have a full written review of it on the blog, so I'm not going to go into any more detail than that, other than it is a middle grade non-fiction book and I did enjoy it. Then we had what I ended up using for my Buzzwordathon book for April. For Buzzwordathon, it was like space and galaxy terms. So originally I had I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson, which if you've seen my mid-month wrap-up, you will know I DNF'd. So then I switched to include Operation Sunshine by Jenny Colgan, which I did read as a physical book. Look, it has the bookmark at the end there. And this one, again, fits the prompt. It started out great. We've got our heroine really wanting to go on holiday, and then she has a chance to go to the south of France with the doctors whom she is a receptionist for. And then there's like some sort of scandal and some sort of undercover person, and I just didn't like the direction that it went. It started off very much as a, you know, funny rom-com with a ditzy heroine, you know, following a sort of fairly formulaic model from 2007, which is when it came out. And then it just takes this like weird turn that I was like, this isn't really what I signed up for. So I would say it was kind of just middle of the road. Once we hit that turning point, I was like, do I DNF it here? No, I'll keep going. And I did finish it, and it was okay. I do love the cover, but yeah, it just it didn't sort of redeem the first half of April, unfortunately. But there you go. We can't win them all. However, one that I did pick up that in the second half of April, after making that video where I was like, I don't like anything I'm reading, that surprised me by how much I liked it, was Severance by Ling Ma. Now, this is a post-apocalyptic novel. It's set in and around New York, and we follow our main character, and it's post-apocalyptic in the sense that this global pandemic that starts in China then lands in New York and starts killing people in New York in like huge swathes, and everyone starts wearing masks and everyone is told to work from home. Does it sound familiar? But this was written like before all of this came out a couple of years ago. I think it was my first ever book of the month club pick, and it sat on my shelf, and then I eventually picked up the audiobook, and I really liked it. It takes place over 3 different timelines, and so you definitely have to be paying attention as you're listening to the audiobook. I think possibly in the novel itself it's much more clear when it switches sort of chapter, and therefore you're switching timeline. I like the headings for each chapter, but yeah, I liked it way more than I expected. It has very polarizing reviews, and so I do sit in the camp that's like, I really liked this. It was a really good time. There were parts of the novel where it was going a little bit slow. For example, you know, when you have a point in the novel where she lists things and you're like, okay, she's going to list 3 things and then we're going to move on, and they actually list 7. Or like, we've unnecessarily heard about the elevator ride up to her office, or heard about the process of putting on her pajamas, and I'm like, some of the mundanities we didn't necessarily need to hear, but because it's very character driven, it does give you a little bit of something, you know, to know more about the character, and so I can see why they've been left in, but we could have edited some of those things out, in my opinion. But yeah, liked it way more than I was expecting to, and I would recommend it. So there you go. Now, I can't remember if I talked about the guest list or not. I think I was about to start the guest list. So this is the guest list by Lucy Foley, another one that I listened to on audio, getting things off my shelf. This one came recommended to me by many, many people. It was a Book of the Year finalist for Book of the Month, which is how I got it, because you get a free Book of the Year finalist nominated book every year, and so I picked this one because everyone kept recommending it to me. One of the narrators on the audiobook is one of my favorite Irish narrators, and so I was excited to listen because I thought she narrated more of it, but she did not. I would say a lot of people recommended the audio specifically. However, I did struggle with keeping track of who was who on the audio, and the thrill of it just wasn't there for me. I think it's definitely more of a mystery than a thriller, and I much prefer the thriller side with a bit of mystery in it. When it comes to the genre, like, I'm very much like, I won't necessarily go to a mystery section, whereas I would go to a thriller section. Unfortunately, most bookshops have those melded together, but yeah, it was fine. It was okay. I didn't want to kind of stop reading it at any point, but I was definitely underwhelmed, and I think that was possibly because of all the hype. And so yeah, the month of April kind of hit this one as well. Yeah, Hottie Girl, talked about this one in my mid-month wrap-up. Tried listening to it, just wasn't great. I want someone else to take the synopsis for this book and look at it and write the better version of it, because this was not it. There we go, going through these. I'll Give You the Sun, started it, listened to about 50%. It just wasn't for me. I'm sure it's very good. It comes up on all these lists, and it's been on my shelf for some time. This is like a gorgeous version and has these like fancy postcards in the back, but someone else is going to enjoy this, even though I didn't. Then one that I talked about that I did absolutely love in the month of April, we have Broken by Jenny Lawson. I was lucky enough to get sent this beautiful finished version, and I am going to make a whole video surrounding this book. It's going to be a little bit different, but I will go into a lot more detail about what I loved about this book. However, if you get the chance to listen to this book on audio, I highly recommend the audio. Jenny Lawson narrates all of her books, and so if you want to have a thrilling reading week with Jenny Lawson in your ears, highly recommend any of her books on audio. This one was just so good, and I'm so pleased that I did read it amongst all these other flops, and having read things that I didn't want to finish, I would happily have gone back to the beginning of this and started listening it again as soon as I finished it. So, you know, probably going to end up on my favourites of the year, I have to say. And then another Jenny Colgan, again, trying to get some books off my shelf here that I listened to. I listened to this one pretty much from cover to cover, just sat down and listened to it. And I adore the cover of this one. I really, really do. I think it's gorgeous, and I love the fact that it wraps around onto the back. I love the fact that it matches like the little chocolate shop and Meet Me at the Cupcake Cafe, Rosie Hopkins' Sweet Shop of Dreams, like all of that. However, having listened to it from cover to cover, the narration wasn't great. A lot of the voices were really, really hammed up. If any of you are Victoria Wood fans and have seen the like university interview that she does, where she's just like, well, I think it has an adverse effect on health because it affects people's health adversely. One of the voices that the narrator does for one of the like actual real characters in this book is basically that voice, and I'm like, this is not appropriate. It's just not appropriate. And again, sort of having read it cover to cover, I can't tell you an awful lot about it. It just wasn't very memorable. Two sisters end up moving to London and they leave their lives behind for better lives, but it's not really kind of as better as they hoped it would be. The other thing that got me, aside from the narration, was this is obviously very much from, when was this first published? I need to check. I think I obviously picked up Jenny Colgan at the right time, because some of these, 2006. So some of these earlier ones are just kind of not doing it for me at all. And I picked up from Meet Me at the Cupcake Cafe, and I adored that one. Like these three here, highly recommend. That's the first ever review I did on my blog, but yeah, like just fully recommend those. But there was a lot of like the whole like lads and ladette thing. The word tits was just used on every single page, and it was just like, just call them something else. And the word utterly was also used an awful lot. I feel like the word utterly could have been edited out in some places. It was utterly this, and then the next sentence it was utterly that, and then she was utterly this, and then it was utterly that, and it was just, yeah, it wasn't the best. And I had high hopes, and it just didn't get me. But I think it is a bit of a, this came out in 2006. We have to read it from 2006 Katrina's eyes. I probably would have liked it a bit more then, but I still think I would have been looking for something more to happen. And then we can't end on that note. So let me see, what else have I not told you about? Okay, couple of things that were just okay. Couple of things that were just okay that I did. I talked about one of these. I read Never Always, Sometimes by Alsaid. I talked about this one on in the mid-month wrap-up, so I'm not going to go into detail about that one. It was fine. It was just fine. Again, nothing particularly memorable. Can't really tell you about any of the characters or really an awful lot of what happened. And I read this one right at the beginning of April, so we are a month away from it now, but I feel like if it was memorable, it would be memorable. And then I think I mentioned in that video that I was partway through The Lamplighters by Emma Stonex. I think I talked about that one being partway through. They say we'll never know what happened to those men. They say the sea keeps its secrets. And I did find it compelling. What I found was the beginning bit was quite slow, the middle bit was definitely compelling, and then the ending was a little bit confusing. And I think that's my summary of this one. This has been like such a well-received debut, but I think I have suffered a little bit from the hype with this one, a bit like the guest list. I think so many people have been like, it's amazing, you have to read it. And it is a gorgeous cover, like both the US and the UK cover are really, really pretty, and there's some like nice editions of this one floating around. I did the audio. I thought the audio was pretty well done. But yeah, beginning was quite slow. Middle was definitely very compelling, and I enjoyed the middle section. I love the mixed media format. I'm always a fan of mixed media in books, but I did find the ending very confusing. So if you have read this and you want to explain the ending to me, let me know. I'm happy to hear it, and it might change my review of the book, perhaps. It might up the rating. It's just what happened this month. But yes, on a very positive note to end for you, we have The Best Is Yet to Come by Katy Colins. If you are looking for an uplifting, like, it's not even really a rom-com, it's just amazing contemporary, like, commercial fiction. It's so uplifting. It's cross-generational uplift. The audio was fantastically done. I loved meeting Izzy and hearing her, like, internal frustrations as a new mum, and the fact that she's, you know, seeing things on social media where, like, you know, she thinks that she should be in size 10 jeans and having a baby that sleeps through the night already and is, you know, feeding perfectly well and never whinges. And then we've got Arthur, who has just lost his wife and is just in, like, also a not very happy place, and thankfully they find each other and form this beautiful, unusual, unconventional friendship, and we've got everything else surrounding that. Again, I talked in a lot more detail in my mid-runs wrap-up about this one. I think this might have actually been the first book that I read in April, and I'm so pleased I couldn't stop listening to this one. It's so good. I highly, highly recommend. So I have 3 or 4 books in there that I definitely recommend, but the rest of them I just can't in good consciousness recommend. The fact that I sort of started the month with a total DNF and had a couple that were very close to DNFs throughout the rest of the month. It's just like, what happened? If you know, tell me in the comments what happened. But yeah, The Best Is Yet to Come, Broken, A Taste of Home, Severance, definite recommendations from me. Kid Innovators, if it's your kind of thing, also recommend that one. And yes, here's hoping that May, which I will leave my May TBR linked in the end screen for you, is a better reading month. Let me know what your favourite book was in the month of April. Also, please let me know, did you have any DNFs in the month of April? Because that will make me feel a bit better. But yeah, May TBR, ready to rock and roll for you there. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out on my next video, which will land in your subscription feed, and hit that notification bell to be notified as soon as I post it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will be back with my next video for you very soon. Thanks for watching.